This part is yeah, there you go. Yeah, now we're back in business. So this part of the seerah is to me my favorite part of telling. I don't know why I enjoy the Makki part more than anything, and I think because there's a lot of similarities to the Makki period of the Prophet ﷺ's life and ours. We're more similar to that part of his da'wah, to be honest, at this point in my assessment, than we are to his Madani period. And of course, that's a whole different study, to be honest, to go into details of why. But this is how I see it. So I find that you can take a lot of lessons from the 13 years he spent in Mecca, alayhi salatu wasalam, and what he went through, and we can apply a lot of it to our lives today. Now, where I am right now in the seerah, I want you to imagine the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam running down the mountain, because that's basically where I am right now. He's going down Ghar Hira. He just encountered something that he doesn't understand, that he cannot comprehend. He was told things that don't make full sense to him at that moment, alayhi salatu, at least not yet. He doesn't know exactly what he encountered. You know who he encountered. You know his name is Jibrael, and you know why he came, and you know the whole point of all this. This is very clear to you and I. It's very easy for us to enjoy the story because we know exactly what's happening. You almost feel like you want to intervene and say, "Don't worry, Rasulullah. This is all going to be fine." But for him, he doesn't know. Yani Musa alayhi salam, when he stood in front of the sea, he had no idea what was going to happen next. You're all hunky-dory when you're telling the story because you know what's going to happen next, but he doesn't. He didn't at the time. And then alayhi salatu wasalam, he didn't know who he had just encountered. He didn't know what was happening. It wasn't clear. He had some idea, but he was not sure. To be honest, he thought the worst. When he came running down that mountain and he entered the house of Khadija, he said, "Wallahi laqad khashitu ala nafsi." I was afraid for myself that this is some form of punishment, or I have done something wrong, or I was scared, ya Khadija. And he had, by the way, alayhi salatu wasalam, had no ego that would deny him or would deprive him of saying that. He didn't feel that he couldn't tell his wife that he was scared, that he was frightened. He found that very normal, very easy. He just came out, I was scared. And Khadija radiallahu anha would answer him, and she would say, "Kalla wallahi, la yukhzika Allahu abada." No, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never punish you. He would never go against something that you would like. He would never harm you ever. And then she would explain to him why. This is where we left off last time. She explains to him why. And she says a number of things, and she uses a number of statements that I think we should really take time to think about. Because these statements are who Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib was before he became Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is him before prophecy. We're going to see the continuation of this throughout the rest of his life, and this is what will hold you in your place as a Muslim for the rest of your life. But this is who he was. This is what defined him as an individual way before he became a prophet. فقالت أبشر لا يخزيك الله أبدا إنك لتصل الرحم وتكسب المعدوم وتحمل الكل وتغيث الملهوف وتقري الضيف وتعين على نوائب الحق. There are 3 narrations, each one of them has one of them a bit different. This is the one that I chose for our halaqah today. It's very simple. قال إنك لتصل الرحم. You strengthen the relations of kin. You're someone who does silat rahim. You don't sit around waiting for your relatives to look you up or to ask about you. You go and ask about them. You're the one who searches for their well-being. You're the one who goes and visits the person who doesn't seem to want to visit you. You're the one who'll pick up the phone and speak to them when they don't want to speak to you. You're the one who'll go and say, let's end this feud, even though they may be at fault and you're not. He's the one who'll do that, alayhi salatu wasalam. Why? Because he understands that the importance of family, it outweighs by far any problem that dunya brought forward. Any problem that dunya created for you in your life, between you and a loved one, between you and a family member, is worth nothing. When you compare it to the value of silat al-rahim, of family, of strengthening those. We don't think about these things when we're young. We allow things to become personal. But then when you grow up and you have kids, and your kids figure out or find out that you don't speak to your sibling, or you don't speak to your aunt, or you don't speak to an uncle or a cousin, how do you explain that to them? How do you explain it to them? What do you tell your children? How can you explain to your children? How can you convince your children to put family before everything and above everything in their lives if you don't do it yourself? إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. That defined him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prior to prophecy. That's who he was. إنك لا تصل الرحم وتكسب المعدوم. Someone who has no money, you offer him from your wealth. You see, he was not poor, alayhi salatu wasalam, by the traditional definition that you and I know. Meaning he can't make money. No, he made money. He had a good amount of money. He made a decent living, alayhi salatu wasalam. He took care of his family, but he chose that whatever extra money he had, and sometimes it wasn't the extra money that he had, he would use it to take care of someone who can't take care of themselves. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلِّ. Al-kall is someone who is just lost in life. There are people, it's not that they're poor. Al-ma'doom is someone who has no money. Tuksibuhu, meaning either you give them money or you teach them how to make money. Tahmilu al-kal is you carry someone who can't carry the responsibility of themselves. You carry the responsibility of someone who can't seem to carry the responsibility of themselves. Some people, they just lack that. They don't seem to know how to do it. They have a job, they have a decent way of making money. They just don't seem to know how to manage it properly. They keep on you must have someone like that in your family. The person who continues just to mess up and make problems and cause, that's just how they are. They can't seem to get it right. What do? We get frustrated with them. And we start to mistreat them. We speak down to them. We're never happy with them. We never accept anything about them. When the Prophet ﷺ, what did he do? وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْ, you carry them. The word in Arabic is you carry them. It's a figure of speech, but I love it. And I use it in English because it's so beautiful. You just carried them. It's as if they kept on falling and you're carrying them. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْ. This is Muhammad ﷺ prior to prophecy. I don't know what else we can talk about. وَتُقْرِي الضَّيْفِ. When you have someone come to your house, you treat well your visitors and your guests. وَتُقْرِي الضَّيْفِ وَتُغِيثُ الْمَلْهُوفِ. Someone who's in severe need, you're there for them. You have their back. This is what Khadija is saying. How many men here can say that their wives would say that about them the day they pass away? An evil laugh. When I think about it, what's the point? What's the point of living a life once you pass away after, inshallah, a long, well-lived life, if your wife can't say that about you? If her honest opinion about you is not this. And it goes both ways. You have an opinion about your wife as well. But since he was alayhi salatu wasalam a husband, that's what she saw in him. This is how she saw her husband. No, you're someone who does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Right? وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. Nawa'ib al-haqq is a word that means masa'ib, difficulties, misfortunes. Just the general difficulties of life. Life it's a roller coaster ride. Every day there's something new. It's never easy. Tu'een, you help people when they're going through their difficult times. وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ عليه الصلاة والسلام. يقولون فهدأ النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. He calmed down when he heard these words. He was shivering before that. The shivering part is documented in the Quran. Ya ayyuhal muzammil. Ya ayyuhal muddathir. We're going to talk about it in a second. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called, hey, the one who came running down the mountain and asked for someone to cover him, to give him clothing and to give him a blanket. Muddathir is when you have the piece of clothing. Sorry, muzammil is the clothing, and muddathir is when you have the blanket. He's asking for cover me and warm me. He was freezing, alayhi salatu. Why? Because it was so cold outside? No, because that's the level of anxiety he was at that moment. It was so difficult. He'd encountered something out of this world, literally out of this world. Jibreel alayhi salam came to him not as in a form that he could accept. No, he came to him the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him. 600 wings. He closed the horizon in front of him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he comes and he starts hugging. I don't even know you. You're hugging, and it's not a fun hug. No, it's a hug that he feels he's going to die, alayhi salatu wasalam. And not once, not twice, 3 times. He tells him, read. He doesn't know how to read. It's not his fault. It probably hurt him, alayhi salatu wasalam, in his life that he couldn't read the written text. Iqra'a, but that's not what he meant, Jibreel. He didn't mean that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. He didn't mean read written text, no. He was preparing the Prophet ﷺ to later learn what it actually meant, and then he recite the 5 verses and leave him. And the Prophet ﷺ how does he deal with this? He runs down the mountain, goes to Khadija. And Khadija would tell him, no, don't worry. None of this is shar. Why? Because you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never ever punish you. She believed in him before he believed in himself. Khadija believed in the Prophet ﷺ maybe a few moments before he did. And I'll prove it to you. That wasn't the end of it. Khadija didn't just say that and let things go in her mind under her breath saying, yes, of course, you met an alien in the mountain somewhere and now I have to deal with all this. No, Khadija radiallahu anha immediately said, قم معي نذهب إلى ابن عمي. Go, we're going to go visit my cousin. Who's her cousin? Her cousin is a man by the name of Waraqa Bin Nawfal. Waraqa Bin Nawfal was one of the Ibn Asad Ibn Abdul Uzza. He is Khadija's cousin, first cousin. Waraqa was one of the few people in Arabia who were monotheists, meaning who still believed in La ilaha illallah. A few people who still had that with them. He had studied the scripture of Isa alayhi salam, and he had believed in Isa alayhi salam, but he was a muwahhid. And you have Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufail. You have a lot of different, actually there's a number of them that if you go historically, people who were muwahhideen. على الحنيفية الإبراهيمية. They still believed in what Ibrahim alayhi salam believed in. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he associated himself prior to prophecy with these people. And that's why he married Khadija, because she was one of those people as well. They weren't, they were rare, but they were there. They existed. And Waraqa was a man who was quite old. And he was blind at the end of his life, and he was of great knowledge. He had studied the Torah, he had studied the Injil, he understood, he knew how things worked. So Khadija trusted him. She took the Prophet ﷺ and she went to Waraqa ibn Nawfal. So Waraqa radiyallahu anhu would tell him, the Prophet ﷺ would give him 4 statements. Tell him 4 things. قال قص علي يا ابن أخي ما حصل معك. Tell me, oh my nephew, and it's a way the Arabs would use it, call someone younger than you your nephew. Tell me, my nephew, what happened. So the Prophet ﷺ began to explain to him, this is what happened. I've been doing 1, 2, and 3 for the last number of months, and then this person, this creature came and it said this and it did this. And the Prophet ﷺ can't even believe that this happened to him, and he's hoping the person listening to him won't mock him for it. So Waraqa, you could see Waraqa's eyes lighten up. Every time the Prophet ﷺ gave a detail, his eye would light up, listening to what the Prophet ﷺ was saying. Why? Because he's heard this before. Waraqa's heard this before. He knows what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about. This is not the first time. Actually, this is going to be the last time. This has happened many, many times before. Waraqa is not new to this. All the knowledge that he had, he was going to use in that moment to tell the Prophet. By the way, the Prophet ﷺ up to this moment doesn't know specifically that he is Rasulullah. He knows that this happened. He doesn't know not exactly what has happened. He does not know. No one has told him that you are now a prophet. The concept of prophecy was not common amongst the Arabs. Ismail alayhi salam was the last one. So it's not common. Usually it's in Bani Israel. So to him alayhi salatu wasalam, he's not sure what he just encountered. And then Waraqa would give 4 statements. First statement, he would say, إِنَّكَ لَنَبِيُّ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ إِنَّكَ لَنَبِيُّ آخِرِ الزَّمَانِ. You are the prophet of the end of time. You are the prophet of this nation. You are the prophet, the messenger that was sent to this nation and at the end of time. That's the first time you heard it, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's going to take time to process all this information, by the way. A few days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a few days to process all this information, because that's a lot to carry, being told you're a prophet. And then he would tell him, وَلَقَدْ نَزَلَ عَلَيْكَ النَّامُوسُ الْأَكْبَرُ الَّذِي نَزَلَ عَلَى مُوسَى وَعِيسَى مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. And what has come to you is the same spirit that came to Moses and Jesus before you. This is Jibreel alayhi salam, just like it came to them, it came to you. You're in the same situation, same position as Musa and Isa. Imagine what he's listening to alayhi salatu wasalam at that moment. You're a prophet. What you just encountered and experienced is exactly what Musa and Isa before you experienced. And then he told him, وَإِنَّ قَوْمَكَ سَوْفَ يُكَذِّبُونَكَ وَيُقَاتِلُونَكَ. Look, those are the words. وَيُؤْذُونَكَ وَيُخْرِجُونَكَ. And your people will persecute you, oppress you, harm you, disbelieve in you, remove you and exile you. How does Waraqa know all this stuff? Where do you get all this information? Who told Waraqa? Is Waraqa in on some conspiracy against the Prophet ﷺ? No. Waraqa studied the lives of all the prophets before. This is what happens. Unfortunately, this is how things begin. Eventually, inshallah, khair prevails, but that's how it starts out. There's a lot of resistance to haqq at the beginning. Because righteousness, it hurts. It's not something enjoyable at the beginning. Later on, it will cure all problems and fix all issues. But at the beginning, it hurts. So that's what's going to happen to you. You're going to be oppressed, you're going to be persecuted, you're going to be mistreated. They will not believe you, they will remove you. The fourth statement. See, these three statements, the first three were for the Prophet ﷺ's benefit, giving him information about himself. Three statements for his benefit. The fourth is for Waraqa himself. He would say, ليتني أكون فيها جذعا إذ يخرجك قومك ولئن أدركني يومك لأنصرنك نصرا مؤزرا. I wish I could be a young man the day they remove you. The day will come when you're going to be removed and exiled and you have to leave your country. I wish I was young. I wish I could be young that day. And if I live to see that day, even in my old age, I will stand by you. The Prophet ﷺ so far has been very polite. Agreed? I would probably have interrupted him at least 4 times by now. He's telling him outrageous pieces of information. The Prophet ﷺ has been very polite. He's just listening. He's not saying anything. He's not commenting. He's not interrupting Waraqa. But at this point, finally, the Prophet ﷺ interrupts. Why? What triggered him? What was the piece of information that he could not deal with, that he had to ask a question? قَالَ أَوَ مُخْرِجِيَّهُمْ. Will they actually remove me from my country? I'll be kicked out of my country? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I wonder what he would say today, huh? If he saw all of us. A bunch of people. What brought you here? Not you, what brought your parents? طيب Sheikh, what brought your grandparents? طيب ماشي الحال, you have a couple of generations ahead of us. What, your great grandparents? What brought you here? This earth is our aunt earth. This is not our mother earth. All earth is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this earth, she's our aunt. We should be very nice to her and very kind. But she's not our mother earth. At least most of us, it isn't. The texture that you have on your face when you look in the mirror, this is not the earth that made it. You belong to a different part. Never forget that. It means something. It means something. Never forget that you hail from a different part of the earth. Doesn't mean that you can't live here, doesn't mean you can't be a proud Canadian and stand by your country and build your country. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not the point of any of this. But don't forget your roots. Don't forget the Mother Earth that produced these beautiful faces, because you owe it something. It's like a mother's children leave the nest and go and work, and then they forget about her. And they watch her burn and get destroyed and lose everything. And they act like it's not happening. It's not fair. It's not proper. All that bothered him. You are a prophet. This is Jibrael. You will be oppressed. You will be this. And the day will come when they'll remove you. قال أو مخرجيهم. They're going to. Why would they remove me? Why would they remove me? All I've done all my life is serve my community that I lived in. All I've done is love my country and love my city and love my family. Why would they remove me? It makes no sense to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Why would I ever be removed? And the day came and he was removed. And as he walks away from Mecca, tears run down his face and he can't hold it back, and he looks back and he looks at Mecca and he says, Wallahi innaki la ahabbu biladillahi ilay. You're the most beloved piece of earth to my heart. وَلَوْلَا أَنَّ قَوْمَكِ أَخْرَجُونِي مِنْكِ مَا خَرَجْتَ. And if I wasn't kicked out of you, I would never leave. It was a scar that never fully healed in his heart, alayhi salatu wasalam, to the day he died, alayhi salatu wasalam. That he was removed from Mecca, where all his ancestors back to Ismail were born. In the same spot, in the same city. For 30, 40 generations, he was removed. It hurt him, alayhi salatu wasalam. He never forgot that. It's a scar that never healed in his heart. أو مخرجيهم قال. This is what Waraqa answered him when he asked him the question. قال نعم لم يأتي رجل قط بما أتيت به إلا أوذي وأخرج. No man has ever brought to his people what you are going to bring to your people, except you're going to be oppressed and removed. It's the sunnah of this life. This is nature. This is how things work. Muhammad sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is how it's going to happen. I'm telling you what's going to happen. He was. It's almost as if Waraqa is living with us. He studied the Seerah and he went back in time to tell the Prophet ﷺ what's going to happen. Okay, by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, this was going to happen. Okay, just heads up, that's what's coming. This was important information for a number of reasons I'll share with you in a moment. And then the Prophet ﷺ stood up and he thanked Waraqa and he walked out. He walked out he's overwhelmed with so much info. He has to process all of this information that he's been given, and he needs a moment. So he walks out, and Waraqa calls Khadija to stay back for a moment because he wants to speak to Khadija. قال يا خديجة ثبتيه. What does ثبتيه mean? strengthen him, stand by him. What's coming ahead is very difficult. What lies ahead of him from this day forward is very difficult. Stand by him. ثبتي فقالت نعم. She said, yes, I will. And she left, radiallahu anha, after him. Okay. When you think about how he was introduced, alayhi salatu wasalam, to all of this, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preparing him and giving him some time. For 3-4 days, there would be no wahi. Jibreel would come that day, and for 3 or 4 days, up to a week, we don't know for sure, wouldn't come back again. It's as if to give him time to think. Process this. You're a prophet, it was Jibreel, what's lying ahead of you are years and years of difficulty. He's being promised difficulty. That's the only promise he was given, alayhi salatu wasalam, in all of his life. What he was promised in his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, was difficulty. You're going to find difficulty in every way. You're going to find difficulty financially, socially, personally, spiritually, physically. You're going to find all these different types of difficulties. Physical, financial, everything. And that's all he was ever promised with, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was promised that, nothing else. How many of us would take that deal? Being told that if you take this, if you accept this, if you choose to communicate with Jibreel, if you don't say, I don't want any of this, eventually you're going to be kicked out of your country. You're going to leave. And Waraqa didn't tell him, but you'll come back. No. All he knows, he's going to leave. He doesn't know if he's ever going to come back. Why would he take all this? Why would he carry it? For the next 6 months, the Quran would come and put the Prophet ﷺ in front of a question. Are you going to carry this or no? You're going to see the surahs will come one after the other, giving him small indications that the difficulties have not begun yet. The difficulties have not begun. The surahs at the beginning will prepare him for it. Will ask him questions whether he wants this or he doesn't want it. It will promise him a heavy load. That's all that they will do. Because he has to commit himself, alayhi salatu wasalam, if he chooses to accept this. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A week later, Jibreel would come again. He would come, يَقُولُونَ يَجْلِسُ عَلَى كُرْسِيٍّ بَيْنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. He would be sitting on a chair between the heavens and the earth, and somewhere in the sky. Not looking the way he looked the first time, different. فَيَقُولُ يَا مُحَمَّدْ أَنَا جِبْرِيل مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَأَنْتَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. I am Jibreel from the heavens, and you are the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَافْعَلْ مِثْلَ مَا أَفْعَلْ. So please do as I do. And he would take the Prophet ﷺ out to the outskirts of Mecca, and he would perform wudu, and he would perform salah. The first thing he would teach the Prophet ﷺ is how to cleanse himself, and how to make wudu, and how to do wudu, and how to pray, and how to actually perform a proper salah. The first lesson that he would learn, ﷺ. We have a lot of opportunities throughout the seerah to talk about salah. But there's so many of them that sometimes I just keep on procrastinating. I'll talk about it the next time I have a chance. The next time I never end up talking about it. At this point, if you're coming to the masjid and you sit and listen to this, make sure that salah is one of your priorities. Okay? Do not fool yourself or kid yourself when it comes to salah. There are 5 salah prayers a day. They have certain timings. Meet them. Pray on time. There are a million excuses for you not to do it. Meaning, you can come to me after any time and explain to me the difficulty of your situation, and I will be fully convinced by you that you cannot perform your salah on time. But I am telling you, perform your salah on time. And do it daily. And do not miss your prayers. Whether you're at school or you're at work. The situations where it's okay to lose a salah or to miss a salah are very few. If you're performing emergent surgery on someone, don't pray Maghrib in the middle of the OR and let the guy die. If you're a pilot of a plane and it's a storm, maybe you can wait until you can turn on the autopilot. Stuff like that. Something that is extreme, where if you don't focus, other people will lose their lives or other people will be at harm. Once other people are at harm, you're good to continue to do what you do. But as long as that's not the case, if people's feelings are at harm, if your job is at stake, if you feel embarrassed, no, that doesn't matter. No, you pray. You go and you ask for time. And you perform your salah. Please do not be embarrassed from salah, because it is one of the most important parts of our deen. The first thing he was taught, alayhi salatu wasalam, ta'al, here's how you make wudu, and here's how you pray. Turn on again. So he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He learned, and he learned how to do it. طيب. Let's go back. I think we're not here yet. Yeah. And he learned how to do salah, alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm going to go back and I want to talk about Waraqa Bin Nawfal for a moment. Did you notice anything special about him? See, I gave you the statements that he made. He made a couple of statements. You notice anything special about the things he said? I told you he said 3 things for the benefit of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said a 4th thing for himself. The 4th thing he said, لَيْتَنِي أَكُونُ فِيهَا جَذَعًا إِذْ يُخْرِجُكَ قَوْمُكَ وَلَئِنْ أَدْرَكَنِي يَوْمُكَ لَأَنْصُرَنَّكَ نَصْرًا مُؤَزَّرًا. I wish I could be young the day they actually remove you, and if I live to the day that happens, I will stand by you with all my might. That's what he said. You see, what Waraqa did that day is that he made an intention. He made an honest, truthful intention that if he were to live to that day, he would stand by the Prophet ﷺ. You know the interesting part of the story? I didn't tell you this part yet. The Prophet ﷺ would leave Waraqa bin Nawfal, he and Khadija, and they would go home, and he would die the next morning. Waraqa bin Nawfal passed away the next morning, he would die. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him life, gave him time on earth to live long enough to the day of his bi'atha alayhi salatu wasalam, so that he would be brought by Khadija to him, so he could tell him these 4 statements and then pass away immediately. But Waraqa was smart enough not just to tell the Prophet ﷺ valuable information, and doing that of course is beneficial, but he was smart enough to put in a 4th statement for himself. He went on the record with a good intention. He went on the record saying, if I live to that day, I will stand by you. That means if he was honest and truthful, he gets the ajr of every sahabi that ever stood by the Prophet ﷺ until the day he died alayhi salatu wasalam. That's why in one of the hadith narrated by Tabarani and by Mujma' al-Zawaid, it goes like this: يُحْشَرُ وَرَقَةُ بْنُ نَوْفَلْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ ummatan wahda. He comes yawm al-qiyamah, Waraqa bin Nawfal, as if he's an ummah in terms of his hasanat. He has enough hasanat to distribute upon a full nation of people. It's like he is his own ummah. Meaning if you look at an ummah and look at all their hasanat, you say this ummah, these are all their hasanat. Each one gets a little bit. And then you look at Waraqa bin Nawfal, he has the same amount as an ummah does. Well, how does that work? Because he made that intention that day. He made the intention that if I live, I will stand by you. And he was honest, he was truthful. And had he lived, he would have done it. But he didn't. All he wants from you subhanahu wa ta'ala is a truthful intention. Never give up on yourself. Even if you make an intention and you don't meet it, keep on making that intention every single day. Make sure you do not let a day go by without the intention of being a better person the next one. Do it every day, never give up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never gets bored of you making good intentions and Him forgiving you and giving you hasanat until you get bored of doing it, until you give up on yourself. What shaitan does, shaitan just comes by and says, yeah, see, you're useless. How many times have you said you're going to do this? You've never done it yet. See, I know, and you know that you're not worth anything. Please stop making a fool of yourself and making this intention. Because he can't stand the amount of reward and the amount of love and mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon you when you make that truthful intention. He can't stand it. He has to convince you that you're not worth it. Never stop making good intentions. Truthful intentions. And even if you fall short, try again. Make the intention again and move forward again. Waraqa yuhsharu ummatan wahda. He'll come yawm al-qiyamah with a mountain of hasanat enough to distribute on a nation. And I have no other stories to tell you about Waraqa besides the one I've already told you. I will continue to tell you the stories of Abu Bakr and Umar and Ali and Zubayr until you're bored of me. But I have nothing else to say about Waraqa. This is the end of it. He died the next morning. Radiallahu anhu warda. Okay. I thought it was something worth sharing. Let's see if we can maybe notice something here. Maybe there's a pattern here. Yes?
Waraqa not the second Muslim then?
Yes, so we'll come to that in a second. I will address that in a few minutes. Let's talk about it. I haven't started talking about the... obviously the first Muslim is Khadija, but we'll come talk about it in a moment, inshallah. Take it step by step. I want to see if people can notice something here. The first word that the Prophet ﷺ would hear is Iqra'a. That's the first word, right? But the first word you would hear is Iqra'a, and we talked about it. It doesn't mean to recite written text. Iqra' means to read. Read in English has a figurative meaning. The meaning of Iqra' is the figurative meaning of read. Reading between the lines, reading a situation, that's what it means. To learn, to comprehend, and to gather information. That's what Iqra' means in Arabic. If you want to talk about reading written text, you will say Utlu. أتلو ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله. Those who recite something written. Qira'a is a different meaning altogether. Obviously, they ruined that in schools when we were young by calling the subject where we read things Iqra'a, and we were led to believe that that's not the truth. That's not how the language actually works. The first word is Iqra. You have 6 references to knowledge, whether it's the tool of knowledge, al-qalam, or it's the actual act of learning or teaching in the first 5 verses of the Quran. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. 6 times in first 5 verses. The second surah that was revealed to him alayhi salatu wasalam is called Al-Qalam. What is the Qalam? The pen. That was the second surah revealed to him alayhi salatu wasalam. The man who told him he was a prophet, the first person to explain to him that you are Rasulullah, was a man by the name of Waraqa. What does Waraqa mean in English? In Arabic, what does it mean? You have obviously a text or paper. No message there at all? What does he need to do? Do you need to spell it out more than that for you, subhanahu wa ta'ala? What else does he have to do? How clear does he have to make this to all of us until we get the point here? Iqra, ya jama'ah, Iqra is something beyond a fiqh command. In Islam, whenever you're given a command in the Quran, it has to have a fiqh stance. It has to be either a wajib, it has to be mandatory, or mustahab, something that is recommended, or mubah, something that is open, you can do, you cannot do, whatever. Or it has to be something that is not recommended, or something haram. Any command in Islam has to fall under one of these 5 categories. When we talk about the command of Iqra in the Quran, it doesn't fall under any of these categories. None of the fuqaha ever mentioned it. This was never studied Islamically ever, because there's no point, because Iqra is one step before. It's before all of that. Before I start explaining to you La ilaha illallah, before I explain to you fiqh and how to perform and what your job is here in Khalif and all, before that, you need to understand a concept. This concept has to be very clear to you. You have to be someone who understands the perspective, the mentality, the way of thought of Iqra. You have to be someone who knows that prevalence of any nation on this earth until the day of judgment will happen through knowledge, will happen through learning, through critical thinking. That is how you're going to achieve things. There are no more miracles as you're used to them. I mean, the stuff that you read in the books. In the Quran, when Salih brings his naqa and Musa splits the sea and Isa resurrects the dead, and none of that's happening. It's not going to occur again. That's over. Why? Because this ummah, the first word, the first thing they're going to be taught is Iqra. Read. That's how you're going to make it. That is how you're going to succeed. You're going to read. You're going to learn, you're going to comprehend, you're going to think, you're going to gather knowledge, and you're going to use it for your benefit. And that's how you're going to move forward. I want to run through this surah with you for a moment. Everyone knows the first 5 verses because they're so famous. But the rest of the surah is, I'm not sure the percentage of people who've memorized the end of the surah perfectly. But the beautiful part of it is that it explains to you exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, if you don't believe me, if my points to you are futile and you think I'm just making this up because I have a point, no, let's read the surah. Let's just go to the surah itself. You see, the first 5 verses were revealed immediately. This rest of the surah was revealed a couple of months later. A couple of months later, the rest of it was attached to the beginning. Let's take a look at this surah together. All right. What it actually does, this is what it does. It talks about what needs to happen before you become Muslim. Before you accept Islam, a number of traits need to exist within us in order for Islam to work. Islam will not function within you if you lack certain traits or you have certain traits, which the surah is going to talk about. It won't function, it won't do its job. And that is why a lot of the problems we have today in the Ummah exist. Because the traits that we needed to have prior to learning Islam weren't there, that are explained in this surah over here. It's like, okay, before we talk about Islam, let's see, are you compatible with Islam? Computers, you have to have the compatible motherboard for the system, or it doesn't. You download it, it doesn't work. Before, that's what Surah Iqra is. It's way before. It's the first word. There's no fiqh here, there's nothing. You need to understand this. This has to be the way of life. This has to be the fundamental principle that you will build your life upon before we talk about how you're going to practice Islam. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of how things are going to be done and all the ethical codes and all the practices and the halal and the haram, we need to know, what type of person are you? Are you someone who understands the fundamental principle of Iqra and what it means? Well, not really. Okay, let's take a look at how the surah actually works. ayah from 6 to 8. كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى إِنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الرُّجْعَى. What the surah is going to do is going to talk about 4 different traits, negative ones, that if you have within you, Iqra, well, you're not someone who is a part of the mentality of Iqra, and Islam will help you in no way at all. Islam will do nothing for you and me if these 4 traits exist within our hearts or we function in this way. You get rid of these traits and then you have the opposite traits, which we'll talk about, and then Islam will actually do you some good and you can use it properly and it'll help you. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains will actually do you some good. The first trait, كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ. No, the problem with the human being, لَيَطْغَى. الطُّغْيَان means 2 things. It means arrogance and it means harm. It's the combination. When you fuse harm and arrogance into one word, it turns the word طُغْيَان. أَرْرَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. The moment he feels that he's strong, he does not care about those around him. He no longer leads Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so he loses his humility, and he no longer needs people, so he starts to harm them. إِنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الرُّجْعَى. But everyone will return to him subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first one. The non-compatible traits, and then the opposite are the compatible traits. From verse 6 to 8, arrogance and harm. What's the opposite of arrogance and harm? What's the opposite traits for them? Arrogance, the opposite is humbleness. The opposite of harm is compassion of some sort. All right, the verse is right after it. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى عَبْدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. You see someone who tells a servant who is praying not to. Tell them not to. Why did they tell the Prophet ﷺ not to pray initially? What was one of the most important reasons for them? One of the most important reasons for them is that it was something that was different to them. It was new. They would say, هَذَا مَا أَتَى بِهِ أَبَاؤُنَا وَلَا أَجْدَادُنَا. This is something that we are not used to. This is not our tradition. My father did not pray like this. Your grandfather didn't pray like this. They used this against him all his life. Did your grandfather and father do like this? Did they do it? Did they do this? Exactly what you're doing right now? They refused it just because it's new. They refused it, they refused the idea, they refused the practice just because they weren't accustomed to it. Because it's not something they're familiar with. If you're someone who turns down ideas, if you're someone who refuses something new, just on the basis that it is new, then that doesn't work. No. The opposite is someone who's impartial. Someone who has open-mindedness. Someone who, let's see this new idea, how it works. The examples of that in his life, ﷺ, were many. He sits with the Sahaba, he asks them, 10,000 people are marching our way, what do I do? And some guy from Persia puts his hand up and says, how about we dig a trench? He used to do it in Persia, used to work there. And the Prophet ﷺ, everyone laughed, by the way. The story, the Sahaba giggled. They thought Salman was joking. And those who didn't think he was joking laughed at him because it's a crazy idea. And because they don't do this stuff. No one digs a trench 5 kilometers long, 3 meters wide, and 4 meters deep. That makes no sense. And the Prophet ﷺ was like, well, that may work. And he starts to ask people the geography of the city, and so puts it together, and it works. And it did work. So the Sahaba that made they weren't ready for that. But he doesn't mind, alayhi salatu wasalam. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يَنْهَى عَبْدًا إِذَا صَلَّى. Says it's a worshipper. Don't worship just because it's not something they're used to. The third one. أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. You see, what if the person who is doing the thing that you don't like has some guidance in it? Maybe it was right. أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. Or what he's doing will result in some form of piety or good behavior. Did you ever think of that? Did you ever give what the other person is doing the benefit of the doubt? Do you ever look at it objectively before? Or just because someone else is doing it, you don't want it, khalas, you don't accept it? Because it came from a source that you don't like? Because it's not something that you're familiar, you accept generally, you're going to dismiss it immediately. You don't have the ability to see the khair in what the other person is saying. You see, as a human being, we disagree. If you can't see the haqq in what I'm trying to say, when I'm talking to you, that means that you have a problem. That means you're not going to be a part of this ummah. Islam is not compatible with you. You have to be, when I listen to you, when I disagree with you, if I don't have the ability to see your point of view, to see that maybe you're saying something that makes sense. Maybe I don't have to accept the whole thing, but at least accept a certain part of it and say to myself, well, Yani, it's not that bad. I guess I can understand your opinion. But if I can't, if the way I think is either my way or the highway, I say it all right, you say it all wrong, and that's how life is, and whether you like it or not, it's your problem. Islam, I'm not compatible with Islam. The third one, being biased and prejudiced. They were biased and prejudiced against him, alayhi salatu wasalam. They could not take a moment and consider that maybe what he's doing, alayhi salatu wasalam, makes some sense. They couldn't do it. The opposite of that is being objective, being fair. The final one, أَرَأَيْتَ إِن كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. See, what if they refuse what is right, and they turn their backs on what makes more sense to them? This is a very important point. In Quran, there's difference between kufr and between takdhib. Kufr means disbelief. Why did he disbelieve? I don't know. Of course, that's the meaning that we usually use. It has a different meaning linguistically, but that's what we usually use. Disbelief, I don't know why. Takdhib means that this person disbelieved even though what appeared to him to make more sense is belief. Meaning it made more sense to him to believe, but for whatever reason, he refused. Kufr could mean that someone disbelieved and they couldn't see the sense in belief. Meaning Islam to them for some reason didn't make sense, so they didn't believe, that's called kufr. But if Islam made sense to them and they said no, that's called takdhib. That's why the Quran, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, many times. And in any situation in your life, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you what is right, and you refuse it because it doesn't serve your interest, because it doesn't help you, because you think that people will never figure it out, because you think you have the ability to hide whatever evidence could convict you, or you can play because you're smart, you know how to speak, you know how to present yourself, so you can convince people that it's a different thing. That's called takdhib, refusing al-haqq, refusing righteousness. أَرَأَيْتَ إِن كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. If you refuse righteousness, you don't follow al-haqq. The opposite, unconditional follower of righteousness. Any of these four traits, if any of these four traits exist in any of us, we're not compatible with Islam. Before we start going into the details, before I explain to you the rest of Islam, these four, you need to be someone who's humble, you need to be humble, compassionate, open-minded, objective, and unconditional followers of the truth. If that's how you live, then Islam will do miracles for you. And if not, if there's arrogance, if there's human harm, if there's refusal of haqq, if there's refusal of all that is new, if there's subjectivity and lack of the ability to be objective and fair, if that's how you are as a person, Islam will do nothing to you, and now you know the answer. And now you know why you wonder, why is it that so many Muslims doing this thing wrong and acting this way? It has nothing to do with the text of Islam. Islam is perfect as a religion and as a faith, as a teaching. It's the problem with the compatibility. These people were never compatible with Islam to begin with. They couldn't fit. Iqra'a, the fundamental principle that came to them, that's what Iqra'a means. The ability to have these traits, because this is how you learn. You need to be someone who's humble. If you're not humble, you can't learn. If you're not compassionate, you can't learn. If you're not open-minded, it's impossible for you to learn. If you're not objective, you can't learn. If you don't follow the truth, follow the evidence, follow what makes sense, the logic, then you cannot learn. And if you cannot learn, then Islam will do nothing for you. That's why the Prophet ﷺ would say, "Nasu ma'adin." People, they have traits. Ma'adin means they're made of what they're made of. They're two colors. خيارهم في الإسلام خيارهم في الجاهلية خيارهم في الإسلام إذا فقهوا. The best of people in Jahiliyyah will become the best of Islam if they accept it, because they're fully compatible. They have it all in. They have all these traits. They're humble, they're compassionate, they're objective, they're open-minded. They follow the haqq, then you'll be fine. But if any of these don't exist, then you can do what you want. Then follow what you want of Islam. It's not going to do anything for you. The system will fail. I understand what I say? The system itself, it'll fail. It won't serve its purpose. That's the importance of this first surah that the Prophet ﷺ was given. It's important to me that I share this point with you, because often we recite Iqra'a and we use Iqra'a with our children and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to read, and you're referring to your kid who doesn't read books, which is nice. I'm not against that. I think that's good. But no, it's way beyond that. This is a way of life. This is a way of thought. This is a mentality. Either you have it or you don't. Can you change to become? Yes, of course. You can change right now. You can make the intention like Waraqa did. And you can have the intention to change right now. If one of these traits don't exist, then change them now. Or else Iqra'a won't help you. That's why Iqra'a is one step before. This is before we talk about Islam. That's why it was the first surah to be revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. I hope that was helpful, inshallah. So these are the surahs that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ at the beginning. These are the first 5 surahs that he would be given ﷺ, and within this sequence as far as we know. So it was Al-Alaq, then Al-Qalam, and then Al-Muzammil, and then Al-Muddathir, and then Surah Al-Fatiha. And each one represented something. And they still represent these same themes if you study these surahs within their ajza. That's the beauty of it. I mean, these surahs don't change if you study them within the juz' that they have in the Quran. And they still have the same representation. They do the same thing. Surah Al-Alaq brought the fundamental principle. Iqra. This is what you're going to live by. I don't understand how our communities today are still so superstitious and so based on hearsay, and refuse things that are clear, that have evidence to them, and refuse science and refuse logic, when the first word in their book was Iqra, and the whole point of this is that you turn into someone who was like that. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. And it's very frustrating, because the more conversations I have to have, I'm growing to, I don't know if you're noticing, but my fuse is becoming shorter and shorter by the day. I don't know why. Maybe I'm getting older, and maybe I don't know what the reason is. Maybe I have 2 kids now, and I don't know what's changed in me. But my fuse is getting shorter, and I'm getting tired of this stuff. I'm getting tired of people coming and telling me that they think they have jinn in them, and that their parents were told them that they can't get married because they have sihr, or because someone, stop doing this. Whoever tells you this, just tell them to be quiet. This doesn't exist. All this cultural luggage that we've been carrying with us for the last 100 years, we need to get rid of, because there's no such thing. It never happened before. Do you really think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would fail to tell you that there's a creature somewhere that you can't see that can hijack your brain and make choices for you? You think He would fail to tell you that somewhere in the Quran? He would forget? Jalla Jalalullah. But we live on superstition. It amazes me. I don't understand why. This is something from other nations, by the way. Other religions have a lot of superstition, but Islam doesn't. Islam started with the word Iqra. You're supposed to follow the evidence. You're supposed to be someone who stands by righteousness and truth. You're supposed to learn and comprehend and gather knowledge, and not lose more knowledge and lose the ability to think and lose the ability to learn. We struggle in this society with mental illnesses. We struggle in this society with mental illnesses. You could be someone who's very aware of this, and you can be someone who's not aware of this at all. But I'm telling you, we struggle within this society with mental illnesses. In every age group, both genders. I've seen it all. And I continue to see it. And it's turning into an epidemic, and it's a problem. It's a problem that if we don't start dealing with intelligently now, will lead to catastrophic consequences in the near future. The consequences of this, you will see within your life. It's not going to happen after you pass away. Within our lifetime, we will see the consequences of this. And a lot of the issues we have with mental illness comes from a lot of the misbeliefs that we have. And the improper way of us viewing our lives and the world around us. Whether it's from people who think, examples I gave you, the superstitious, or those who refuse to understand that the brain is like any other organ. And it gets sick, and it needs help, and it needs therapy, and it needs medication, and it needs people to say it's normal. And this is not an act of anger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't fix it with some sheikh reading Surah Al-Fatiha over a bottle of water and then having him drink it. I think I spent the first 10 years of my life as a sheikh telling people that I don't want to read Surah Al-Baqarah, because imagine someone asking you to read Surah Al-Baqarah over a bottle of water. Imagine that I did this before. Well, I had to do it once. It was an old lady, and she was too old for me to explain any of this stuff for. If I went on this rant, it wouldn't work. And she made me ihlif yameen that I would. And I had to sit in a room, and I read Surah Al-Baqarah in full over a bottle of water. And the poor person that I was doing it for was a schizophrenic, who was denied healthcare, and denied antipsychotics, and denied therapy, and that's all it was. But we couldn't get that through to them, and we couldn't get it through to him. And I hope my Quran helped him. The Quran always helps, by the way. Let me make this very clear. Quran is shifa for everything. For everything. You need to read it every day upon everyone you love, every single day. Every day. I do it every day upon all my loved ones, every day. Whether I'm there physically beside them or not. Never stop. The moment you stop, shows something wrong with your faith. Every day you do it. But just like when you break your leg, you don't read Surah Ali Imran upon it. You take it to an orthopedic surgeon first to fix it. Do the same with every other illness in your life. If you're okay with breaking your leg and just reading Quran upon it until it heals, go ahead. But you won't do it. Then why is it for other illnesses we will? Why is it? Because we don't understand, well, not this, we don't understand the concept of Iqra. Because the mentality of Iqra, the fundamental principle of Islam, the compatibility is lost. We've lost our compatibility with our own deen. We've lost it. Because we're not open-minded, because we're not objective, because we will not follow the truth, no matter where it leads us. We follow the truth, the evidence, what is logical, what makes perfect sense, we follow it. And we are humble as we do it, and we're compassionate towards other people's suffering. And if we're not that, then I don't know what we are, to be honest. And those are the first 5 surahs that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. We have a few minutes, so I'm going to share a few more thoughts, inshallah. Okay. So if you look at these surahs, which I'm going to, within the next few weeks, I'm going to break down, not in detail. I won't do a tafsir halaqah instead of a seerah halaqah, but I will give you some pointers just from them, so you benefit from them. These surahs brought the Prophet ﷺ with just enough information, because what's going to happen after these 5 surahs is no more wahi for 3 to 4 months. Jibreel will no longer show up, not for anything, not for spiritual support. No, he won't come. He'll bring these surahs and he'll leave. He won't bring the whole thing. Surah Al-Qalam, he'll bring only a certain part of it. Surah Al-Muzammil, the first page. Surah Al-Muddathir, the first maybe 19 verses. Surah Al-Fatiha, obviously the whole thing. And then Jibreel will stop coming to the Prophet ﷺ. He will no longer show up for 3 to 4 months. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ has to devise his plan. He has to figure out what he's going to do. And he has to figure out whether he's going to commit to this or not. These were very, very critical months for him, ﷺ. And he'll become very upset within them. Because all of Quraysh, the moment he said, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق, knew the story. The story wasn't a secret, by the way. We were sometimes led to believe that no one knew about it until he stood on Jabal al-Safa. No, everybody knew about it. Way before he got on Jabal al-Safa. All that happened when he got on Jabal al-Safa and said, he called all Quraysh, is that he made it a public issue. He made it public. Everybody has to make their choice. Are you going to listen to me? Are you going to give me the benefit of the doubt? Are you going to listen to what I have to say? Or are you going to shut me down? Some people listened, some people didn't. But everyone knew. It's just because he was doing it privately at the beginning, alayhi salatu wasalam, they left him alone. Quraysh is like, you're not doing it publicly, it's not our problem. We do behind closed doors, do what you want. But the Quran was so interesting that everybody had to hear it. Everybody would wait until one of the people who accepted Islam came by. Ta'al. What's Muhammad saying? Oh, there's a new surah. Okay, what does it say? No, I want to hear what it says. Yeah, but you're not Muslim. I know, I'm interested. What does he say? And they couldn't get enough of it. There's a story I'll share with you at some point in the future. They would go stand behind the Prophet ﷺ's wall, because he used to do qiyam al-layl outside and recite the Quran. And they would stand there to listen to him. And they would bump into each other. Abu Jahl and Abu Sufyan would bump into each other. What are you doing here? Nothing. What are you doing here? They just wanted to hear, because no one would tell them anymore. When they start to persecute people, no one would tell them anything anymore. And it hurt them. They wanted to hear. نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم فستبصر ويبصرون. To them, they had never heard words like this. Arabs are masters of the language, they're master of poetry. They know how to put together something that sounds beautiful and has deep meanings. But the Quran came and acted as if it cared of nothing of this. The Quran acted like nothing of this mattered. Years and years of Arabs perfecting this craft of poetry to make sure that things are said in a certain way and follow a certain law. And it's beautiful and it's difficult to actually keep up with. No one can do it today. It's a dead art. Even those who try and say poetry, they can't do what was done there. It's almost miraculous. The command of language that the Jahiliyyah people had. And then the Quran came and said, I don't need any of this. It broke every law. It brought forward a way of literature, of scripture that was never heard before. It started to say things that didn't follow the very rigid tunes that poetry did. It ended differently. It had its own way of reciting. You see, when you recite in Arabic language, you don't do mad. No one recites, no one reads a novel or reads a newspaper and says, Ma ila. No one does that. You just read whatever there. You don't ghunn and noon when you're reciting a book. You don't do that. But in the Quran, not only is it going to break every law, it has its own law. And when you read it, you have to read like this. And you have to sing it out. You have to sing it. It has to sound nice. You can't say, Ma anta bin. No, that's not okay. Make it have to sound nice. It came and broke every law. And they couldn't handle it. They could not handle that this is happening, because that goes against every cell in their body. Because that's what you're used to. And why is Muhammad doing this? But they couldn't get enough of it. To tell us more though. This is so wrong. But what else did he bring today? يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو ينقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. They want to hear it. They had to hear it. And then after these 5 surahs, Jibreel stopped coming for 4 months. And they started to mock him. Alayhi salatu wassalam. All the difficulties will start right at the beginning because he has to make a decision. Is he going to commit to this or is he going to give up early on? But these 5 surahs were enough. He was given the fundamental principle in Surah Al-Alaq. He was given the ethical code in Surah Al-Qalam. Read the first 16 verses of Surah Al-Qalam. All they are ethics you shouldn't have. Which in the Quran does a lot. The Quran, instead of telling you what you should have, it tells you what you shouldn't have. It's easier that way. Let's rule out the bad stuff, and then whatever's left is going to be a bunch of good things. You can choose whatever you want from the good things. Just rule out the really bad stuff. Surah Al-Qalam was the ethical code. Surah Al-Muzammil is your spiritual needs. The Prophet ﷺ will be told what he needs to do in order to carry this message for the rest of his life. You have to do Qiyam al-Layl. You have to وَذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ. You have to recite the Quran. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنِ. You have to do these things. Go to Surah Al-Muzammil, the first 19 verses, and read them. You'll find the exact same thing. He's being told, do these things to strengthen your heart. You need your sleep, right? You need your sleep? Yeah. You need your prayer as well. You need your prayer just like you need your sleep. You need both. You lose one, you don't function. Very simple. Surah Al-Muddathir gave him the conduct. The mission of conduct, what they're going to do. قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. What it's going to look like in terms of the conduct he's going to carry and what he's going to teach people to do. And then Surah Al-Fatiha is the manhaj. Surah Al-Fatiha is the general way of life. This is what it's about. This is what breaks down everything that Islam is about. Everything I talk to you about in Islam is very simply summarized and explained in Surah Al-Fatiha. Anything I tell you, or I explain to you, or I talk to you about, that does not fit with the basic principles of Surah Al-Fatiha, you can easily tell me you're wrong. Immediately, because Surah Al-Fatiha, everything is the key. It's the key that opens every door in the Quran. It's the key that opens every door in Islam. Everything has to have Surah Al-Fatiha ahead of it. You can't read the Quran unless you read Surah Al-Fatiha first. No, don't read the Quran, read the Fatiha first. Why? Because you need to remind yourself, this is the key. This is the key that you use. You understand the Quran through Surah Al-Fatiha first. He was given all those tools. Here are the tools, come up with the plan. What? Ya Rabb, you're not going to give me the plan? Jibreel's not going to plan things for me? Who's the first Muslim going to be? You're like, oh, it's Abu Bakr. Well, who do I start with, Ya Rabb? Do I start with Abu Bakr? Do I start with Umar? Who do I speak to? Do I stay here? Do I leave? Do I speak publicly? What do I do? Nope. Figure it out for yourself. And he did, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I'll share with you the struggle that he had figuring this out at the beginning, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'll share with you a few of the meanings of these verses, inshaAllah, next week. I hope that was helpful. Subhanakallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.